Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, I do want to speak about Oriol Romeu and then talk about the pivot position. There has been a lot of noise regarding this position. Barcelona are gearing up towards that because the transfer window will be open in about a couple of days. And one of the names that has been strongly surfacing around has been Kalvin Phillips and Thomas Partey. So welcome everybody, welcome to this Barcelona channel. If you guys are Barcelona fans, this is going to be the channel for you. If you guys do want to support this YouTube channel and if you guys like this video, please feel free to like this video and also subscribe to the channel. I myself would really appreciate that type of support. So let's get on with this conversation. And it all started with Oriol Romeu. Ever since he lost that ball in the middle of the pitch against Antwerp, many Barcelona fans had enough. They're like, okay, Oriol Romeu is not our pivot that we need. This player does need to go. He needs to go somewhere else, go to a different club, because what he has been doing in the middle of the pitch is unacceptable. Losing balls under pressure constantly over and over again. That leads towards Barcelona potentially conceding a goal. And it says here, according to eSport, that Oriol Romeu's return to Girona is a real possibility in January. Barcelona would welcome the departure of the player who has been losing prominence in recent weeks, which is the reason why we have not been seeing Oriol Romeu recently in the past 2 or 3 weeks compared to what we saw in the first 2 months of the season. His performances are not getting better and it's making Barcelona worse. And it's crazy, right? Because if you really think about it, can you imagine Oriol Romeu going back to Girona and then he tells the players, look, the job is finished. I have tanked Barcelona by myself. Now I'm here to support you guys again and make you guys win La Liga. It was like a plan that was in place this whole time by Oriol Romeu, the coach of Girona, and the Girona and the rest of the team. But let's get serious, right? Because Barcelona are very persistent on what they want to do in January. They want to sign a new pivot, and Joan Laporta recently this week has talked about the current financial status of the club, and this is what Joan Laporta had to say. We have a margin. I think that until the end of the year, we can generate fair play for a series of operations that we have underway, and if they are confirmed, we would have options. If we manage to have fair play, the idea is to get a midfielder who somehow compensates for Gavi's loss. It would be a transfer until the end of the season, as we did many years ago with Edgar Davids, meaning that Xavi Hernandez is going to be having options. He's going to be having players to choose from to reinforce the pivot position and to also compensate for Gavi's loss. Alfredo Martinez did state this, and I quote, Barcelona is looking to sign a physical midfielder in January to compensate for the absence of Gavi. They prefer an experienced player from La Liga who does not need to adapt, and that's going to be very hard to find because there's not really a lot of options out there in La Liga that can play at this Barcelona club and perform right away. It's not going to be easy. I think that if Barcelona really want to have a fair chance on reinforcing the pivot position, they're going to have to look elsewhere besides La Liga. Now, Mundo Deportivo has stated that Barcelona's options to reinforce the midfield position in January is going to be Thomas Partey, Renato Sanchez, Kalvin Phillips, and Andre Santos. Now, this goes very against with what we were just talking about how Barcelona want to sign a midfielder that does come from La Liga. But let's assume that this is true. Let's assume that these are going to be the 4 options, because again, like I've said, there is no options right now within La Liga. It's going to have to come out from outside of this league. And to be very honest, like if we're talking about these 4 players here, I can only see 2 with a real possibility, and that is going to be Thomas Partey and Kalvin Phillips. These 2 players excite me because I think that they have what it takes to succeed at Barcelona. But which one is the better player? Which one is able to showcase their true talents at Barcelona in a much better way? Now, if you guys are wondering what about Van de Beek, because I've heard you guys talk about Van de Beek and how he could come to Barcelona and maybe get paired with Frankie de Jong, and I can see that, but Fabrizio Romano has stated that Barcelona will look into the January transfer market for a player like Van de Beek. But for a player like Van de Beek, he wants to play. He does not want to go from United's bench to Barcelona's bench. And look, the main weakness at Barcelona, if any player were to analyze Barcelona's main weakness, they would know that they can come into that club and fix their problems right away because they are in dying need of a brand new pivot, and Van de Beek would have to see that. If he has second thoughts and he's like, no, I don't really want to go to Barcelona because it's just not worth it for me. If he has second thoughts, then we don't want that player. We want to have players that would be committed to give out their best with no second thoughts, and they should be able to come to this club and say, it does not matter if I'm going to be benched or not. I just want to represent Barcelona because that is a team that I do greatly support. We only want players like that, which is why I want to introduce Kalvin Phillips and Thomas Partey. These 2 options are very interesting because both of these 2 players have good motivations on why they would want to arrive at this club. With Kalvin Phillips, he has not gotten a lot of playing time. He fits into the system of Pep Guardiola's Manchester City, but Pep Guardiola has much better options talent-wise. Like for example, how are you going to bench Rodri for Kalvin Phillips? Rodri is just exceptional. He's just world class, which is why Kalvin Phillips has not really seen a lot of minutes. So he would want to go to a club where he is going to be getting a lot of minutes and, if necessary, work hard to convince the manager that he should be getting a lot of minutes. As for Thomas Partey has played in La Liga before. So if Barcelona wants to talk about they want a player that is very experienced in La Liga, Partey has been at Atletico Madrid for like about 2 or 3 years. So he has experience on knowing what it's like to play in the league. The only downfall regarding Partey is that he is injury prone. As a matter of fact, he's injured right now, which ultimately makes me believe that I think Kalvin Phillips is the real deal. He is the real option for the club. But Barcelona's not the only team that is eyeing Kalvin Phillips. Fabrizio Romano wanted to state this, and I quote, "Juventus have now opened talks with Man City to discuss Kalvin Phillips' deal. There are negotiations starting between the clubs, and Kalvin is said to be open to the move. Juventus plan to offer a loan with a buy option clause. Man City want a mandatory option instead of a buy option clause." And so if that's going to be the case, if Man City are really looking for a mandatory option by the end of a loan move, which is what Barcelona also want to do, like what Joan Laporta did state earlier this week, I can see Barcelona going for a very similar deal like how we did with Joao Felix and Joao Cancelo. Loan Kalvin Phillips for about 1 to 2 years and then make that purchase option for the player. And yes, I do have confidence that Kalvin Phillips can deliver, because look, every time I do see a good player not get a lot of minutes because the club is just so competitive, we usually see that specific player turning his career around and doing much better at their next club. Like, he has only played 9 matches this season. 4 of those matches were coming from the Premier League. The other matches came from other competitions under Man City this season. And that's sad. It's really sad to see someone at the age of 28 years old only play 9 matches in all competitive competitions so far. And I think that because Kalvin is slightly more technical than Partey, Xavi Hernandez will lean on that player. Because Partey does remind me of Alex Song. They do have similar traits, and I remember when Alex Song came to Barcelona, he was in somewhat very limited to what he could do and provide to the club, and Barcelona do need a player that can rotate the ball fast, make quick decisions, make constant through balls through the middle, be young, have high athleticism. There were some things that Alex Song could not meet in regards to those things, but someone like Kalvin Phillips, he can bring all of those things. And like I've said, he has all the reasons in the world to perform at a high level, because he also wants to make this move in January because he wants to prove to Southgate, who is the coach for England, that he is good enough to make it to the Euros 2024. Because if Kalvin Phillips does not play and he does not perform when he's given the chance, he won't make it to the Euros, and he wants to be in that England squad, which makes this loan move very exciting on Barcelona's part. Now look, of course, Barcelona is going to be nurturing other young central defensive midfielders. Kalvin Phillips is 28. He's 29 years old. He is a experienced and veteran player that has played at Leeds before for many years, and with Rafinha, a player that Barcelona do have today. And so I think that because he is in his almost early 30s, Barcelona will still look out there in the market to see who is that next young central defensive midfielder that they could nurture. But right now, Barcelona do have real problems. If they want to compete in the Champions League, if they want to compete in La Liga, they're going to have to sign someone like Kalvin Phillips to reduce our short-term problems. So that is going to be wrapping up today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.